everyone. Welcome to our almost weekend wind down where it is 5:33. This is supposed to start at 5:30. So basically I'm on time. Yes. I love that for us. This will be like, one of the few jokes because this is going to just be very kind of sad and hopefully not traumatizing. Hopefully this can be cathartic and we can discuss how to tackle these persistent issues in this country, child. In this country. So let me know if you can hear me. I have my AC on. We had a Patreon live earlier today and they couldn't hear the AC. So let me know if you can hear the AC. If it's loud, I'll turn it off. But yeah. All right. Welcome, Stacy. Welcome, Drea. Okay, so we are going to go ahead and hop into it. So our agenda for today, hey Jamila, is going to be the origins of Sesame Street. So just to reorient people as to why this is so egregious. It'd be egregious anyway, but particularly Sesame Street, I feel very let down. Hey, Jonathan, traumatizing Black children. So we're going to talk about the health issues that arise since people want to make light of the issue as if it's not an important issue and as if it's not actually traumatic for the two children involved. And now, honestly, the multiple children involved because there are multiple videos. Consequences are always better than apologies. Apologies are worthless. I prefer consequences. And then DEI is performative foolishness. Telling from me, you can hear the AC? Okay. Y'all have good hearing. Better than Patreon. Okay, let me turn it off. Because it is hot as hell in every colonizer land, aka the global north currently, I probably will turn it on back in like 5 minutes, but we'll turn it off and on because I know it can be distracting if you can hear it. All right. And yeah, so DEI is performative foolishness. And, we're going to do a separate video. We did a video on Patreon earlier. We did a live specifically talking about, my foray into diversity, equity, and inclusion. And how that came to an abrupt end. Because sometimes when you say things, people don't like that. People don't like the truth, but that's fine. All right. And we're going to discuss that probably next week in a video on YouTube. But if you're curious, it is on Patreon. All right, so let's get into the origins of Sesame Street. Let me make me small because y'all know I can see nothing in that little screenshot I provided. So Sesame Street was started by Sesame Workshop is actually the company behind Sesame Street. Sesame Street is the name of the show in 1969. So most of us have grown up with Sesame Street. Sesame Street is like a wonderful educational show. Still, I would say, I think my sisters still watched it like when they were little. Basically, Sesame Street was started in tandem with LBJ's War on Poverty. So President Johnson had a war on poverty in the late 1960s. Particularly, he was a staunch supporter of MLK. And because it was a war on poverty and because America is a vile racist place, it was actually specifically designed for poor children with a heavy emphasis on Black and brown children. So Sesame Street was, I would say, like a breakout show. It was an instant hit. It was very different from the shows at the time. So around that time when TV was becoming popular, a lot of adults, similar to like when social media became popular, were very concerned that TV was just going to rot children's brains. So they realized that since their children were sitting in front of the TV so much, they could actually use TV to educate children. And they realized that poorer children were not given the same access that middle class and rich children were given. So Sesame Street was intended to close that gap. Sesame Street historically has tackled a lot of, I would say, like important topics such as racism, has tackled homophobia, has tackled AIDS. There's an episode in Sesame Street about death. So historically, Sesame Street was that bridge, was supposed to be doing all of those things. All right, so Sesame Street aired in 1969. When it aired in 1970, the Mississippi State Senate actually voted to ban Sesame Street. That ban lasted for about 20 days. Specifically, they did not appreciate the diverse cast, which is ironic because Mississippi is the blackest state in the United States. And Mississippi and the people in power of Mississippi like to constantly put the Black residents of Mississippi down. And Mississippi has the poorest education funding. So one of the poorest. Florida is close, y'all. Poorest education funding in the country, is right up there with Roe v. Wade, a lot of the implications. So, all right. Now, I thought we'd do a good throwback of when Sesame Street cared about children. This is Reverend Jesse Jackson. This I thought was like very sweet. So just to caveat, Reverend Jesse Jackson is, a character. I'm just gonna say that. But this is one of the original clips from Sesame Street.
I am somebody. I may be on welfare. But I am somebody. I may be small. But I am somebody. I may make a mistake. But I am somebody. My clothes are different. My face is different. My hair is different. But I am somebody. I am black, brown, white. I speak a different language. But I must be respected, protected, never rejected. I am God's child. I am somebody. Give yourself a big hand.
Okay. Also, I did think it was a little bit funny that when they said I am black, they cut to little blonde children. Silly, but it's such a sweet remembrance of the reason why Sesame Street was formed was to instill confidence, instill education in poor children. So that is where I'm Stephanie Child. That is where Sesame Street started, and Sesame Place has decided to go its own way. So let's get into that. Hold on, it might play for a second. Okay. Here we go. Okay, so before a few things, I'm not going to play the video of the two little black girls being shunned by Rosita. It's very heartbreaking, to be honest, to watch. And particularly, we're going to talk about it and the effects of it, because there seem to be, sadly, I would say like two camps of people that understand like, hey, racism has very detrimental health effects on children, on adults, of course, obviously. People experience that, but specifically on children, because children cannot verbalize that they have, experienced a great loss. Children cannot verbalize, most of the time, like, hey, like, not only are my feelings hurt, like they're confused. The literal look of confusion on the one child's face and then just hurt is just very heartbreaking to see. And there are people who very much understand that. And then the other half of the discourse is people be like, it's not a big deal. And to those people, like, you need to open a book. You need to read a book and you need to just get off the internet, because I cannot deal with it. So I figured we would pull some information from people much smarter than me, from MDs. So, how children experience racism. Racism can feel deeply personal for a child. Children may experience it in the form of racial slurs. They may encounter adults who treat them as racial stereotypes, not as individuals, as we saw with Rosita. They may see their parents slighted or treated with disrespect. Children can internalize harmful stereotypes, says Erica Lee, attending psychologist at Boston's Children's Hospital. Over time, experience or witnessing discrimination can negatively impact a child's identity and self-esteem. And so this is from Boston Children's Hospital. What I found, I would say, interesting is not the word, like most attached to was everyone's reaction, most Black people's reaction to the immediate remembering back of, oh yeah, I remember the first time I realized that, oh, America's not built for me and people are going to be mean to me because I'm Black, which is so sad. So this is from Wendell Pierce, who is a wonderful actor. And I would say, I think he's about in his 50s. So just to put in context, like how something so traumatizing at a young age can be seared into your memory. So witness the end of innocence, witness the end of trauma. The moment is violent, scarring. I feel like he wrote this in such an excellent way to capture exactly what the children were feeling. Scarring, psychological abuse. Watching it reminds me of my own 4 years old on Mardi Gras Day, being denied the joy I see other kids having and realizing the horrible reality, the immediate loss, the pain. And I feel like if you talk to any Black person, anybody who wants to be honest, so most Black people who want to choose honesty, it is very immediate, the remembrance. Like 4 years old, and he's talking about Mardi Gras, so it's probably, I've been to Mardi Gras. I used to live in New Orleans numerous times. this mad racist people in Louisiana. So most likely he probably saw the young white children being given beads, being the people in the parade route, being kinder to them, like giving them a hug, etc., and realizing like, oh, they're purposely ignoring me and they're hugging everyone else that doesn't look like me is because I'm Black. When I was in the second grade, and it's sad to know that the memory is so visceral. You remember all of it. When I was in the second grade, my best friend was this young blonde girl. She was white. And I won't say her name. I think she would be surprised that I remember all of it. I haven't talked to her since elementary school, but you keep up with people on Facebook, which is interesting. So in first through sixth grade, I went to a private school. It was free. And the rest of the years I went to a public school. It was free because my mom worked there, which my dad still paid tuition. Child mess. Anyways, in the second grade, I remember this was my best friend. We were very similar. We were very similar for specific reasons. So she was poor and I wasn't, we were the same. We were economically exactly the same. And specifically, her dad was the custodian at the school. So her dad reminded me of my dad. So since he was a custodian, he had on like a workman's outfit. He had a huge belly. I love my dad. He also has a huge belly. It is what it is. Similar outfit, wore the same work boots. I adored her dad. It was basically, in my mind, like a white version of my dad. He used to give me hugs. He used to give me treats. When he gave her treats, he would pop up in our classroom. I loved him. I'm trying not to say his name right now because I remember their name. So I remember one day, we are in the second grade, mind you. She came up to me. I don't remember the root of like what the conversation was as to like why she said it. Stephanie, my dad hates Black people. That's what she said. We're in the second grade. What are you in the second grade? 8 years old, 9 years old? My dad hates Black people, but he likes you. So I'm looking at her confused. Like, what are you talking about? Like, why does your dad hate Black people? But also, like, I'm a Black people. So, like, are you sure? Like, you sure you heard this properly? Like, what is going on? And so I'm looking at her, I was like, why? Like, why does he hate Black people? Like, this is my buddy. Like, I loved her dad. I'm like, what? I'm confused. Oh, start saying all these stereotypical racist things, which we are 8 years old. She learned it from him, which was flabbergasting to me at the time. Like, I couldn't comprehend any of that. Oh, Black people steal. This is what she said. Black people steal, are lazy, this, that, and next. And I was like, well, I'm always around Black people except you. And I don't know any Black people that do that. I don't think that's correct. I don't know what to tell you. And mind you, I'm so like shocked. I don't know what to say because at 8 years old, I don't know to verbalize racism. I don't know to be like, no, blah, blah, blah. Like, your dad is a racist. And now my feelings are hurt. I don't want to talk to him anymore. So for the rest of the year, I just avoided him. And I was like, whenever he would come by, I would just avoid him. I was like, I don't want to speak to this man. Like, I don't know what to say. And I didn't tell anybody either because I was like, oh, I don't want to get him in trouble. But also, like, I'm confused as to, like, what does that even mean? So I remember, because I was petty, I've been petty all my life. We went to the book fair maybe 2 months later, and I saw her steal something. And I was like, oh, watch me and you. So after I watched her steal it too, I let her steal it. And so when you leave the book fair, it's always like in a separate like room or section of school. Once we left out of the book fair, I looked at her and I was like, I saw you steal that. She was like, and I was like, Black people don't steal. You're stealing. Interesting. And she looked so shocked. And I was like, yeah, you're white and you're stealing, but you're telling me your dad doesn't like Black people because we're stealing. I never stole anything. And I never seen anybody else. There was only ever one other Black kid because it's private school. I was like, we didn't steal anything. And she didn't have anything to say. And it was always for years, like, this is my best friend. I just let it go. Like, for what it's worth, I was 8 years old. After I thought I socked it to her, I was like, whatever. I let it go. And for years, I thought about it. And it was interesting. It was sad. But the predictable thing happened when Cheeto got elected. Her family on Facebook, they had a huge family. They lived on the rougher side of town with the rest of us. I was like, what you mean you hate Black people? We're all poor together. Like, this is nonsense. And they were all very much Trump supporters, nonsense. And it was interesting to watch her realize and to grow out of it. Because I watched all of it on Facebook. I was like, I'm not talking to you. But I see all of it happening. And it's so sad. So like Wendell was saying, and like other people have been saying, like, it is an automatic response when you see a young Black child. Like, the whole thing just instant recognition of what's going on, and the pain is there. And with that, there are also Black adjacent people who want to call themselves Black when it's convenient, who say things like this. And I did not appreciate this, which is why I was like, I'm going to put it in here.
5-1 in the last couple of days, we've been seeing a lot of videos and a lot of reports of Black families bringing their kids to Sesame Place, and the characters saying what's up to the white families, but just walking right by the Black families. So we're asking, have you had a similar situation to Sesame Place? I've been to Sesame Place a couple of times. I got 6 kids, so I feel like I'm always there. I haven't had that problem because the Casey Crew gang is serious. And when they want a picture and they jump, they're going to stop that whole parade. Brooklyn going to jump in front of everybody. So is Jackson. So is London. Logan when he was younger. So was Madison. So I never had that problem. Now, Charlamagne, you got 4 girls. You ever been to Sesame Place?
I hate people like this. I never had that problem because my kids stick up for themselves. So, I don't know about you. Maybe you should have done something else. It's so unnecessary. And also it goes towards people, and I say Black adjacent people because he likes to identify as Black, and that's not my business. I'm not getting into an argument about what that girl man wants to call himself, whatever. If your whole premise is to just discredit what we all watched, 2 little Black girls getting ignored purposely by the character, what is the purpose of you being like, well, it doesn't happen to my kids. Don't know about you. I guess they don't really have a problem. Maybe the problem is you and your kids. It's so rude. And the rest of the clip is equally nauseating of Charlamagne, them being like, is it that big of a deal? Child, clearly the therapy is not working. I digress. But there are a lot of Black people, and actually not a lot. I think the majority of Black people I have seen online have been extremely supportive, and more so along the line of Wendell recounting like their traumatic memory that they remember. But there are a decent amount of people who very much feel that way. Like, it didn't happen to me. It didn't happen. Are you everywhere at all times? Also, not factoring into the colorism aspect of it is extremely tone deaf. Extremely tone deaf and stupid. It's very, very strange. Exactly. I completely agree. Such a weird flex to say your kids don't experience racism. I mean, like, what was the reason? Cardi B voice. What was the reason? So let's continue on. Okay.
Don't 5-1.
No, enough of this. All right. So for people like that who think that, oh, well, you need to be more assertive. If you want something, you got to assert yourself. You wanted that picture, you wanted that hug, you wanted that high five from the character, you should have asserted yourself, is nonsense. And also those types of people completely neglect that racism has actual impacts on children. So specifically, racism and its effects can lead to chronic stress for children. And chronic stress leads to actual changes in hormones that cause inflammation in the body. This is from Harvard Medical School. So in case anybody, I do not have an MD, so I went and asked the MDs. Okay. A marker of chronic disease, stress that a mother experiences during pregnancy. And again, everyone is aware, at least I hope people are aware, that Black women in this country are 3 times more likely to experience a negative childbirth experience and die from pregnancy-related issues as well as childbirth, which is why when we were discussing Roe v. Wade, it doesn't make any sense to discuss the overturning of Roe v. Wade without discussing the racialized aspect, because the impact is mostly felt by Black and brown women. Stress that mothers experience during pregnancy can affect children even before they are born. Despite improvements in healthcare, racial disparities exist in infant mortality as well as low birth rate. And these issues persist. One of the young girls, the mother did have a statement, did have press release? No, it's a press conference, sorry. A press conference with her attorney, to which she stated that the child does not want to go outside. She's traumatized, that she is receiving counseling, because what people are not realizing, it's not only that the child's feelings were hurt. She was very excited. This is her favorite character, is built up in her head like, oh, I'm so excited. I've been waiting all day, all week, all month for this. Going to the theme park as a little kid is like the best thing to ever happen. As somebody who's from Miami, who went to Disney World many times because I loved it, but also, let's be honest, my dad loved Disney World. And back in the day, a park hopper pass was $100 for the whole year. If you were a Florida resident, it was cheap as hell. Going to a theme park as a little kid is built up so much in your mind. Do you know the amount of, first of all, letdown and of embarrassment? The two of them probably were like, oh, did I do something wrong? It's always immediately when you experience an act of racism as a child, because you cannot verbalize all of your feelings of, oh, well, people ignore me or people are mean to me when I did something. So what did I do? She didn't do anything. And for people like, what's the man's name? DJ Envy. I always confuse him with the other one, the Ebro one. Sorry. To say like, oh, it doesn't happen to my kids is so callous and so rude and so disrespectful to the two little Black girls who are just trying to mind their business. They're trying to mind their business. They're over there, just trying to say hi to Rosita. If you watch the video, which I'm not going to play it, to be honest, I find it to be like very hurtful, and I don't want to be bothered with all of us like being emotional at one time watching it. To be honest, every time I watch it is very emotional. To be honest, I forgot what I was going to say. I was reading the comments. Rejection is tough on kids. Yes. Oh, where was I going with this? I forgot. Oh, let's move on. So what is very, in my opinion, harmful about it is that kids in the rejection aspect, if you see, that we weren't going to play the video right now because it's emotional. If you watch the video, it's very apparent. Rosita looks down, whoever's in Rosita looks down, looks at them, says no, shakes the head, walks away, hugs the white child next to her. And right before she did that, she also, I think she like touched the hand of a white parent next to them. So if you're a child, you see this and you're like, well, if I think I did something wrong, what is the only thing different between me and these people? What is the association? The association is that they're Black. That's the only association. And once numerous other videos have come forward of Rosita, which it can be different people in the costume, it's the same character. So for some reason, it's just racist Rosita in the character for whatever reason. Doing this to other Black children, it's so sad. It's so sad. Exactly. There are so many of them, and I don't want to play them. And also, I guess like the other reason why I don't want to play them, and I think is very astute on, I saw Nappy Headed Jojoba did a video, which is really good too, as well, about boycotting Sesame Place and like why people should boycott, and also like the realities of why people don't boycott things, even though they should. She also didn't show the faces of the little girls because how traumatizing is that? Like they can't be more than 8 years old. They're like, I think one looks around 6, the other one looks around 8. You're 8 years old. Now your face is everywhere. So when you're a teenager, you're going to see it, that your face is everywhere. And all these people are saying all these either positive or even negative things. But here is your face frozen in time, looking so sad, so dejected. So sad. All right. Okay, let me go on. So yes, Rosita, look at the hand gesture. Rosita said, no. And of course, like the way the mask is set up, that's how the face always looks, but the face is set in a smirk anyway, which did not help. It did not help. Okay, so after this occurred, Sesame Place decided to say this, which this is the biggest load of malarkey. Also, riling up Calm Kelly Rowland, is you're wrong. You're just in the wrong. You're just causing commotion. So the first paragraph is basically about the brand and that they're all about, actually, we'll read the first sentence and then it's really the second paragraph that I think is more important. Our brand, our partner, our employees stand for inclusivity and equality in all form. See, here goes the DEI language, which we're going to get into at the end. The performer, now here goes the first excuse. The performer portraying the Rosita character has confirmed that the no hand gesture seen several times in the video was not directed to any specific person. Rather, it was a response to multiple requests from someone in the crowd who asked Rosita to hold their child for a photo, which is not permitted. The Rosita performer did not intentionally ignore the girls and is devastated about the misunderstanding. We spoke to the family and extended our apologies and invited them back for a special meet and greet opportunity with the characters. We apologize to these guests for not delivering the experience they expected. Whoever wrote this needs to get fired. Needs to get fired for multiple reasons. Anybody with 2 eyes watching that video can see the child that Rosita decided to hug next to them is the same height as the 2 little Black girls. Clearly, Rosita can see all of them. Also, it's a video, there's audio, there's no one asking for Rosita to pick anyone up. It's just a lie. Which I'm glad afterwards, other Black parents were like, oh, really? Bet. Here's my video of you, Rosita, ignoring my child and Rosita being rude. There also have been some very inappropriate videos released of some Sesame Place characters, like bumping over little Black kids, like doing very weird things, rubbing what seems to be like parts of the character into the Black children's face. Just nonsense abounding throughout all of it. Okay, so excuse number 2. So now these are all still on their Instagram. So they realize, ooh, press release number 1 didn't go too well. Shouldn't have let, tone deaf Tom write it. Let's write this again. Excuse number 2 is not any better. We sincerely apologize to the family for the experience in our park on Saturday. We know that it's not okay. Oh, but I thought Rosita didn't see anyone. This is why, again, and someone mentioned this already, the fact that whoever's in the Rosita costume hasn't been fired is objectively wild. So Shayna, shout out to Twinny, many moons ago used to, if there's a specific way to say it, like Disney has a lot of rules, used to be friends with Princess Tiana, I think is like how you're supposed to say it. Read it, like you get what that means. So there are a lot of rules. Like you're also on your call sheet as what character you're playing. All those characters, I mean, I've had, since I went to University of Central Florida in Orlando, I had so many friends like be Disney characters. Most of the characters in the costume are mostly women or because there are height requirements. And sometimes they're men as well, but mostly for those characters are mostly women. And also it's stated there. So like, for example, if I was supposed to be Minnie Mouse one day, it would be like, Stephanie, Minnie Mouse. These are the times I'm in the parade doing this. I'm doing meet and greet. They know who's in the Rosita costume. Every single video uploaded, they know who is in the Rosita costume, every single video, every single time. The fact that they have never and still are refusing to fire this person, but instead said, we are committed to making this right. We will conduct training for our employees so they better understand, recognize, and deliver inclusive, equitable, and entertaining experiences to our guests. This is a weaponization of DEI language, where DEI language is already fluff nonsense, which we're going to get into the end. Those people don't need training. They need to be fired. They need a new job. They need a new job that's not around Black children. They need to do something else with themselves. That's what they need. This makes no sense. We're going to train them so they know how to deliver an equitable experience. What are you talking about? The concept that you can train away racism has always been a comical concept, in my opinion. You can't train away those things. You can consequence away those things. You can. If people see that you will get fired for doing racist shit, they will stop doing racist shit. Will they stop being a racist? Maybe, maybe not. But their actions in that one regulated space at that certain regulated time will stop. It's common sense. That's how that works. This idea of then gaslighting everyone. For over 40 years, Sesame Place has worked to uphold the values of respect. Again, weaponization of DEI, like inclusion and belonging. They said, you know what? Let's use a different one. We didn't use belonging yet. We have DEBA now, which is diversity, equity, inclusion, belonging, accessibility. Throw the belonging in there. We are committed to doing a better job making children and families feel special, seen, and included. What I haven't gotten over is the tone deafness of the first excuse, in which they said, we are going to offer a private one-on-one with these 2 girls and Rosita. Why would a little Black child and their rightfully angry, hurt, and upset parents want to then go and play in Rosita's face? Why? They're already sad. They're already hurt. They're already confused. Unless you're going to have Rosita talk, which the characters are not allowed to talk. At least like that's how it works in Disney World. I'm assuming like usually everyone follows a Disney model. They're not allowed to talk. Like the ones that are in fuzzy costumes, the ones that are actual people, they'll talk and they have certain lines. They have to have an accent, whatever. So unless Rosita is going to talk and apologize and be like, you know what? I did a bad thing, girls. That's called racism. What you experienced was racism and I did it. And I'm getting fired. What is the purpose of the meet and greet? What is the meet and greet going to do? What sensible parent, and the mother already said like, no, we're not going back over there. Like, absolutely not. I want a sincere apology, but you're not going to go re-traumatize my daughter who now doesn't want to come out of her room. Also, I think an aspect of this that technology or medicine, the medical field, the psychology field hasn't caught up with technology is that we're looking at the effects of racism through mostly an adult lens. So like, yes, racism affects children. So we know like from adult experiences, like, oh, I felt this way. I'm 31 now. I could tell you everything about the day that, you know, my best friend told me her daddy don't like Black people. I could tell you everything from the color she was wearing. I could tell you all of it. But we're not looking at it from the perspective of current children, in that current children grow up with the internet. Like we didn't grow up, I'm 31, where like all the millennials grew up with the introduction of the internet. Like we remember floppy disk, Oregon Trail, you know, original version, user interface of Snapchat, not whatever version is on there now. I can't look at it. These kids have a very different perspective of, oh, this happened. I'm embarrassed. My feelings are hurt. Also, I know that mommy and daddy are upset. I know they hired a lawyer. They know way more than we did as kids. They also probably, oh, wow, what are people at school going to think? Are they going to think that I'm a crybaby because my feelings are hurt about this? That is a very different thing. Before things would happen, there's no one taking video of anything, which we have probably experienced the same amount of racism, I would say, maybe more, because now people, I don't know if people act better, to be honest. No, people don't act better. We just capture more of it to call it out, to be honest. And that aspect clearly was lost on Sesame Place. Clearly, just didn't think about it. They're like, oh, go call the marketing team. The marketing team writes these communications. Go call marketing and go call the DEI team, which I look, they have a DEI team, which we'll go through in a second. And, you know, make them draft something like, let's set it up. And sometimes, honestly, having had worked full-time in DEI in a tech company, sometimes they don't even call the DEI team. They will draft, the marketing team will draft whatever they want to say, be like, hey, can you review this? And then when you push back and you're like, I don't agree with X, Y, and Z. You know, like, okay, well, let's take out Y, but X and Z we're leaving in. It's like, I just told you I don't agree. It's not your job. You don't know what is appropriate to say in here? A mess. All right. So, as we have seen in lifetime, by the inclusion of the word inclusion, literally 5 times in both of those statements, DEI, corporate DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion is what that stands for. There are different versions of it. The original version was diversity and inclusion, DE&I. Then they added the E for equity. They realized like, oh, if we're not helping people where they're at, if we're not literally lifting people up so that we're all on the same starting line, this is pointless. They've added that. Is performative foolishness and malarkey in most, if not all of these companies. Anti-racism work, I still believe in. I think that can work because you're actually calling out the thing. DE&I is a euphemism for, you know what, let's just assuage white people's feelings. And, you know, we're not going to actually do anything, but we're just going to use jargon that makes people think we're doing things. The original point of Sesame Street was, I would say, valiant endeavor. Definitely helped a lot of people. I've grown up on Sesame Street. I think a lot of people in the States and in the world nowadays have grown up on Sesame Street. Sesame Street was one of the few places as a kid you could see a lot of Black people on television doing various things, like being educational, doing uplifting things like we saw in the clip with Reverend Jesse Jackson, just all of things that were missing from TV for a long time, and for better or worse are still missing from TV. This concept, hold on, I'm going to turn the AC on. So if you have very sensitive hearing, I'm sorry. I'm going to turn it on for like 10 minutes and I'll turn it off. This concept that, okay, now that, you know, we have to do this as a public company, as a corporation, as somebody in the public eye, we have to do it to like, let us codify language. So inclusion means everybody is treated well. Everyone is included, has a seat at the table, blah, blah, blah. Inclusion. Saying all these things, inclusion, belonging, etc., and not saying the thing that they did, which was racist. It was racist. High-fiving the white parent, hugging the little white children, and ignoring the 2 Black little girls and all the other Black children that we've seen videos of now is racist. Sending out a statement that doesn't include the word racism, because the word racism makes people uncomfortable, is stupid and is not addressing the actual issue, which shows that they have no interest in addressing the actual issue, which is a mess. I know. It's so hot in here. I know, I feel bad. I know some people have sensitive ears, so just keep it off for a little bit. Not addressing the racism, like how is this fulfilling what Sesame Street was literally made for, which was to address racism and poverty and welfare, and addressing at one point Sesame Street addressed homelessness. Sesame Street addressed death when so children don't understand these concepts naturally. Just to Shelby's point, that was the whole point of Sesame Street. This is the whole point. And to just fall behind it so far because corporations now have realized, like, you know what, we don't really address racism. We don't have to say it. You know, we just can use these DEI words, just use a diversity, equity, inclusion, just throw them in there. Throw the words in there. It's like we're saying racism, but no one is uncomfortable now. That's not enough. That's not going to work. Performative nonsense is not going to help the little girl get over her now traumatizing experience. That's not going to explain to her, sweetie, sadly, people are racist and they're wrong. There's nothing wrong with you. You're a beautiful Black child. Ignore them. Seeing consequences will make her feel better. Them getting fired. Eventually, when she got a little older, make her feel better a little bit. Like, oh, you know what? People may cause harm to me, cause harm to me, but there are consequences to their actions. The worst thing, one of the worst things, not the worst thing, because the initial harm is awful. One of the worst things and side effects of experienced racism is watching the person who aggressed you, watching the person who harmed you, consequence-free, frolic around, unbothered, untouched, is one of the worst things because it dehumanizes you as a person. It ingrains in your head when you're a child, people will do awful things to me and nothing will happen to them. And then if I say something and I receive negative feedback, then it re-teaches you in your mind, oh, well, I guess I can't say anything because then I'm the bad person. Rebecca hurt my feelings. Rebecca said, you know, it's the summer and she's as dark as me. And I told her, I don't like that. Rebecca's crying. Well, you know, I value Rebecca. I guess like we're friends. I guess I can't say that to her. No, Rebecca's wrong. Rebecca should apologize. And it's this cycle that perpetuates. So for everyone saying like, oh, the parents are taking it too far, I need to let it go. No, they're taking it to the place it needs to go, which is teaching their child, listen, when people do wrong things to you, don't worry, I will make sure they have consequences. And I will scream from the top of my lungs, from the top of the roof, and I don't care if anyone else hears it, but I'll do it for you. Because the lack of protection of Black children in this country is flabbergasting. It's flabbergasting. From things that are emotional harm to actual physical harm, from disciplinary actions in school, the statistics are all there. Which is why I think we need to really push back on these companies with their DEI nonsense. Unless you're going to do actual anti-racism work and address the root of the issue, this is a waste of time. Kumbaya is not getting to why did Joe fire Deandra on the second week of work? Why? It's not getting to that. It's not getting to that. All right. With that, let's go ahead and read some comments. Okay, so if you're just tuning in, all you're going to see now is forehead and comments. So since we're getting to the comments, I'm going to leave the AC on. I'm going to leave the AC on. All right. And yeah, I got a new little GIF for wine time. Okay. Thank you, Stacy. All right. We're just going to go ahead and read through. I had a little boy who was so sweet that I used to nanny when I was in college. His name was Royal. But he used to call himself Roro. Actually, I should check on them. Beautiful little kid. Yes. And people never realize this, Sandra. Mississippi and Florida have huge Black populations. Yes. Miami has a huge Black population that gets ignored way too much. Which is why I was very excited when Moonlight came out to finally see Black Miami. I'm sure it'll be good, but Rap Shit by Issa Rae comes out this week, next week. So I'm definitely gonna watch that. It's based in Miami. And I think it's based off of the City Girls. I think they're working with her, if I read that correctly. So I'm excited about that. Sabrina, I remember citing this in high school. The Detroit public school system is garbage, but the silver lining was that my K through 8 education was Black-centered. Oh, that's wonderful. I missed that when I moved to suburban Orlando. Oh, Orlando is, having gone to UCF, Orlando is a wild place. Disney World can be magical, fine. Orlando? Orlando is a very wild place. And I think to that point, Sabrina, I think a lot of people who don't grow up with a Black-centered education, like as kids, my friends that had one, wow, the level of self-awareness, the level of self-confidence, it's like night and day. Like my best friend that we met in the 6th grade, Imani, God, we know each other 20 years. We met when I was 11 in the 6th grade. She went to a Black elementary in Miami, and they used to sing "Lift Every Voice and Sing" instead of doing the national anthem. And I have so many friends like that, and I'm like, yeah, that would be so much better. It would be so much better, regardless of what race you are. It's much more uplifting. All right. Hey, boo. Fadhil. I remember having a similar conversation with someone in the 4th grade. It's always around that age that I've noticed in having like racist experiences in elementary school, that kids not only pick up what their parents say, like you can parrot what your parents saying at any age. Like kids say wild things. My brother, my oldest little brother, because there are 4 of them. I remember it was like a Riley little middle schooler, but he taught our little cousin to say jackass. I see you, Jeffrey. But kids will parrot whatever. But I've noticed in like 2nd through 5th grade was when my white classmates not only would parrot what their parents said, they would apply it in their mind. Like when my best friend in 2nd grade wanted to tell me that her dad didn't like Black people. She realized what that meant. She realized like, oh, Stephanie is a Black person. Oh, but it's wild. Like this idea that racism is not taught and that we shouldn't teach proper history in school is nothing but smoke and nonsense. Smoke and nonsense to continue the status quo of traumatizing Black children for no reason. A consciousness pause. Thanks for talking about this. It's so sad and my heart breaks for Black children. The moment of realization that racism will forever impact your life is extremely traumatizing. Exactly. And I'm very not only proud, but also grateful for the parents and the aunt. I believe one was her niece and the other is her daughter, for loudly fighting for them, because I think it makes a world of a difference to know that somebody in your family will fight for you. And not have to be your family member, but somebody will fight for you for the right thing. Because I feel like that, at least, nothing can be a consolation because it already happened, but that shows that, oh, I'm a value. So back to the original Sesame Street call and response that Reverend Jesse Jackson was doing, it shows you that you are a value, that you are a person worthy of value, worthy of being defended. Because as an adult, as an adult Black woman, there are multitude of ways people try to remind you to stay in your perceived place. All right. Okay. If you're just tuning in, we're doing comments and forehead, so you can scroll to the beginning. All right. Eric, I couldn't even watch the Hulu series about Black women in childbirth. It was too much. I have it on my list of things to watch, and I know that it's just going to be a lot. It's so viscerally sad and so viscerally heartbreaking because it's unnecessary. It's unnecessary for the mortality rate of Black women to be 3 times higher in this country than white women. It is unnecessary that alleged smart people who have chosen to be doctors to this day across the board, in their spirit, in their educated mind, think that Black people have higher pain tolerance than white people. It's objectively wild. It is objectively wild. Thank you, Jonathan. If you haven't already, go ahead and like and subscribe. Ciao. Y'all gotta learn to stop making excuses for nonsense. They can see through the mask. It's a safety issue. They could not, they're not walking blind. They don't have a handler in the parade. Y'all gotta, please stop the nonsense. Exactly. Well, let's not even. Daisha. Yes, she said there are multiple videos. Yes, there are multiple videos of the character doing this. This is ridiculous. Like Sesame Street was made for inner city kids. Exactly. They designed the set specifically to look like an inner city neighborhood, so that way people, and particularly children, could see their neighborhood on the screen in a positive light. Man. Welcome to the first live. Hey, Aunt Judy. Wow. You know what? I believe it. Just try. They just write in these statements. They just write in the statements like, oh, statement's out. It's done. Oh, we can all relax. Like, no. I think Nappy Headed Jojoba's video, which I will, let me find it and I'll link to it, is a great video. And particularly, she made a very good point. Sorry, that, hold on. She made a very good point that people often think whenever they're going to boycott something, or they are going to, like, oh, let's like make a fuss and then it's done. Like these corporations are like, I did it, it's done. Highly recommend her video. This is Kevin Watch. If you guys want to watch, it's over and it's done. The Montgomery, I was like, it's the Montgomery bus boycott lasted between 16 and 18 months. 16 to 18 months. It's a long time for people to say, you know what, we're not going on the bus. Screw the hell out of you. I'm not doing it. We're going to carpool. We're going to walk. Also, Alabama's hot as hell. Hot. We're going to do all these things. And I think we need to learn, and it's hard. It's hard to get people to give up their creature comfort, but giving up what is objectively like not the best theme park in the world. Proximity wise, I'm sure like if you live in Pennsylvania, like, oh, but this is the closest one for my kids. I get it. Taking them somewhere else for an extended period of time would send the message to Sesame Place like, oh, damn, I guess we do got to fire Ed or Ted or Ned or whoever the hell is in the, or Fred or Frederica or whoever. Because it's probably a woman in there, to be honest, because of height requirement, whoever is in the costume. Because the idea that they are still not saying that they're firing this person is objectively wild. There are so many videos now. There are so many videos. It's not an accident. They did it on purpose. Why not just fire them? They're standing 10 toes behind whatever person this is, to basically say, no, screw y'all. We're going to do what we want to do. Like, I know we have this cute little show and we used to talk about all these things about inclusion and, talking about different life issues and talking about different demographics and making people feel seen. But when you actually are seen in our premise, in our space, we're going to do what we want to do. And that's the triflingness of it all. That, to me, I think is the worst part. All right. I agree. I'm wondering if an employee is just going to out them. I'm wondering if an employee's like, you know what? I've been new that so-and-so was doing this. I wonder if that's going to happen. Yeah, it's pointless. It's really pointless. Consequences are much better. And this is it. It's about the money. Girl, let me know if you find the magic combination of training. I'm literally editing a college paper about training away racism as we speak. Listen, the fact that people have made a career out of this is interesting. It's very interesting. It's very interesting. And I'm not going to lie. I had to do a presentation when 2 months ago on why reverse racism is not real. As in, people at the company I worked at were very much like, going to HR, there's a reverse racism. No. So-and-so didn't get promoted because of reverse racism. These are adult humans. Adult. Mind you, whole team, Lily White, whole team. And I'm like, first of all, this is not real. It's not happening. Second of all, There is no evidence. Like, everyone on the team is still white. What are you talking about? Wild. And when I did that presentation, I'm not going to lie, it was to a group about 50, 60 directors and above, director level, and it felt great. It felt great to do a giant corporate middle finger of like, get your head out of your ass, because I don't care. Like, I'm this way all day. I've earned that right. I don't give a damn. You've earned that right. You're alive. Screw it. And it felt great, but does it do anything? No. You get a couple red faces. You get a couple people embarrassed, like, oh shit, I didn't know Stephanie know that I said that. Like, because they don't want people to know that they're racist. They don't want anybody to know, but they don't have a problem being racist. It's the getting caught. It's the getting caught that people don't like. It doesn't have any long sustained impact, which is why DEI is corporate nonsense. It's corporate nonsense. To create the perception that a try is occurring, that, you know, we're trying and we make mistakes and we're going to keep trying. Like, stop it. Just stop it. Exactly. Ancient essence. They don't need training to know excluding Black children is wrong. They already knew that and did it anyway. What is the training going to be? Now, listen, Rosita, when you see the Black children, the Hispanic children, the Asian children, you still have to wave, Rosita. Like, this is part of the training to begin with. Wave at all the children. Hug all the children. Don't pick any of the children up when you're in the parade. You might drop them. That's dangerous. Child mess. Exactly, Adam. Exactly. A check to, you know, yes, a check and therapy. She's going to need therapy because a lot of people, and I'll speak from, I think particularly around our ages, when the first, Wendell is a good example, most likely when that racist incident occurred against him at Mardi Gras, 4 years old, 4-year-olds do not have the language to say, Mommy, I didn't like this. Some of them do now. Like, kids now, I would say parenting has advanced, which is really nice. Most of our parents and our grandparents didn't have the language to verbalize, like, yo, every day in this place is racism. Like, what is the problem? Like, they knew it. They would talk around it with themselves, but most likely didn't have the language. A 4-year-old definitely does not have the language to be like, I notice XYZ. I feel XYZ. She's going to need therapy. That will help. So that way she doesn't have to grow up and be an adult that's like, when I was 7, I went to Sesame Place and this visceral thing happened to me. And then I went to school and all the kids called me a crybaby and this, that, and the next. And then these adults on the internet said their kids are more vocal, so I need to be more vocal like their kids. And then when I was vocal, somebody told me I was an aggressive Black woman. And now here I am. No, she needs therapy to walk her through that. So they need a check to fund the counseling because her mother said she already started counseling. Exactly. And it's also, I would say, racism training. Any DI training is usually done from the perspective of the aggressor, of the person who is committing the harmful thing. For the number one, my biggest nitpick, and something that I will never do a training on, and also I've left that life, so goodbye, good riddance to it. But, and we'll do a video on that later if you're curious. My number one absolute hatred, every bone in my body hatred, unconscious bias training. It's not unconscious. This idea that you have to coddle racist people and be like, you know what? I know you called Stephanie nappy, but it wasn't it was unconscious. No, you consciously said, you know, Stephanie, I prefer your hair when it's straight. The first time someone said that to me in corporate, confusion. I was like, wait, this is a grown adult woman. It's a white woman. Did anybody ask you? I have never commented on your hair, sister N. I don't care about your stringy hair. I don't care about any of this. Looked me dead in the face. I liked your hair better straight. That's not unconscious. It's a conscious decision to think the thought, the anti-Black thought, to then be like, I don't like this. And then to third, verbalize and be like, not only do I not like this, I need Stephanie to know nappy doesn't make me happy. Unconscious bias training is such nonsense. A lot of bias is very conscious. And it was interesting in having to like explain that concept when I worked in DEI to people. You at the same time still have to coddle people, because if you tell them their bias is conscious, Immediately no. I've seen what I need to see, and they don't want to hear it. So you have to jovial it up. You have to be nice. You have to tell them you too have conscious bias. Yeah, everyone has conscious bias. I have certain biases. So my go-to was always, oh, as a Jamaican, I love other Jamaicans. I think we're the best thing since sliced bread. We can be highly problematic. I'm aware of this. I'm not going to admit that to white people. It is what it is. I think we're the best thing since sliced bread. However, I cannot hire a team of just Jamaicans that are all 5'2.5" and have big hair because it looks like me and it makes me happy. That's nonsense. That is a conscious bias, and that is a conscious positive bias. So then you have to, because you got to warm them into it that they're doing it on purpose. I've noticed, Tim, everyone on your team is 5'8" and blonde and went to Princeton. It's not that you hate Black people, maybe, but it's that you clearly love you. Everyone looks like a clone of you, Tim. Let us move from this. And then once they're bought into the fact that, like, wow, my whole team does look like me. Okay, I knew I wasn't a racist. No, they probably still racist, Joe. But you got to ease them into it, because that's the DEI way. You can't just mollywop people with their racism, even though we should just mollywop people with it. Consequences. The only thing that I've learned in the past 6 months is that consequences are much faster, yield better results, and actually push change, because we are not, as a marginalized person, not going to change people in power. It's not going to happen. However, if people know, the wine, I forgot the wine was still going. If people know, like, damn, if I fire that Black woman I hired, 6 months in, because really I'm just jealous of her and I'm mad that she told me that I did a bunch of racist things, like, oh, I'm not allowed to, because then I too will get fired. Shucks, I guess I won't fire her. Change of behavior. That's all people want. That's all I want. Change of behavior. I don't care if it's sincere. I don't care if you mean it. I don't care about any of that. I care about change of behavior. And this idea that we're going to train people into changing behavior is silly. It's silly. But yeah. All right. And Dr. Ranger, they need unemployment, not training. Yes. Consequences. Sit on your ass and realize, like, damn, what I did was wrong. I shouldn't do it anymore, because then I have consequences. All right. Lamara. Yes, I'm curious about, so Lamar, I always say that only white people can get help is to remove from causing harm and get help from a mental health professional practicing anti-racism and the neuroscience of racism. I think having honest conversations of racism in this country and across the world as well, but racism, if we're just talking about America specifically, is a caste system. So like Isabel Wilkerson, it's called caste. Her first name is Isabel. I forget what the last name is. Y'all, Wilkerson, I think. Y'all will keep me honest and put it in there. Has a book about that, and it's been on my list. I've read parts of it, but I haven't read the whole thing, so I need to read the whole thing through, which is basically the racial caste system incentivizes people to be racist. I may be poor, but I'm white, so I get better things than you. I may be this, but I get better things than you because I'm higher up on this caste system. People do not want to acknowledge that racism is a benefit to them when they are white. Yeah, you get things. You get things to prioritize yourself as a white woman and be like, it's about me. It's about all women. Stop talking about Black women and stop talking about Latina women only. It's about all of us. To weaponize and use marginalized language. The most shocked I ever, not ever was, but I guess like top 5 moments of shock at my old job working DEI was when this white woman said to me, bold-faced, straight-faced, she was serious, so-and-so is asking me to do recruiting for women and help with that. And, as the marginalized person, I shouldn't have to do that. The who? The what? I've never just looked at somebody and been like, oh, I don't know how to respond to this because nothing I have to say is polite, but also I'm not paid enough to give you a psychoanalysis, and nor do I have a degree in psychology to understand how the hell you got here to weaponizing and using language of marginalized people to your purpose. Wild. Objectively wild. The cognitive dissonance of it all was just flabbergasting. Very, very interesting. Fragile Rock. Hey, Marcus. I forgot about them. Fragile Rock would never accept that one episode where he called someone a jigaboo. I cannot deal. Actually, I'm going to turn it off now. It's finally cooled down. Listen, this is a good question. And honestly, I think this question is not for YouTube, but I had that thought. I had that thought because this is not a mixed company question, so I'm not going to go into it. The question is, what if Rosita is a Black girl, though? What are we going to do? The concept of internalized racism is not talked about nearly enough. And when you work in the corporate space with other corporate Negroes, that shit is loud. That shit is so loud. Like, all my life I had to fight. Like, nobody is more cumbersome and stands in the way of progress than somebody with internalized racism. That shit is wild. And that is a very good question. And the likelihood, it is possible. It's not probable. And it's still the same root of the issue is racism. The same root of the issue is racism. And she needs to get fired. Whoever it is. All right. Exactly, Dr. Injure. If Rosita is a Black girl, she still needs to be fired. Exactly. And maybe that would be a good Sesame Street episode about internalized racism. Because it doesn't get enough. It does not get enough airtime. It doesn't get enough airtime. And because it's such a nuanced conversation that to have that conversation, you can't have it in mixed company without assuming that everybody understands how racism works. And which is why it doesn't get enough airtime. But I do think like maybe we'll do a Patreon video on that. Because that would be very interesting. Mary, I know. All right. All right. We should. We should. Because think of it this way. I do not have children. However, I have a lot of siblings, and I have a niece who is cutest thing ever. I would not, even for a day of fun, want to take my child there, even on the small inkling, or somebody that I love there, on the small inkling of like one of these characters acting a fool. Because Rosita is going to catch the right one on the wrong day, and the parent is going to get up in her face. Rightfully. It might not end well, but it's going to happen. Oh, this is a great point, Jamila. Inclusion and access were the reason for Montessori, and look where it's at. Elitist, privileged private schools, people be usurping and exploiting initiatives that weren't designed for them. Yes. There are a lot of initiatives in this country that did start for Black and brown people and were very much tailored to that and have very much been usurped. Yes. Actually, I'll have to look up like other lists, but that is a good example. I think when I was like did K3 and K4 in like a free Montessori school when I was a little kid. I think so. Exactly. Black people can still perpetrate anti-Blackness. For sure. All right. Lorraine, DE&I is definitely performative nonsense, just checking something off a list so later they, meaning the company, can say, we gave them training. Yes. It's all documentation. And that's where the rubber meets the road. When you're trying to do the work and the powers that be, you're like, we just need to document work. It's like, what? Everything becomes a PR stunt. Just, did you write it out? Communication. Did you write it? It's like, did you do the actual labor? Did you go and see why, Black women are leaving at an alarming rate out of these tech companies? We're going to do a video because it has become one of my pet peeves of, I'm going to assume goodness that they're not doing it on purpose, but they don't realize what they're doing. But I see some millennial women doing too, but I see more so the young Gen Z Black women that work in tech, peddling, let's work in tech, everyone work in tech, without ever mentioning that tech as an industry is so anti-Black and it's so harmful to Black women and has the highest rates of attrition for Black women, probably more than any industry, is tech. And them not mentioning that is very like, sis, you got to say the whole thing. You got to say the whole thing. And it very much is indicative of how DEI is run. Like, okay, we're not going to say the whole thing. We're just going to document. We're going to document that we're aware that there are no Black and brown people in here and there are no Black VPs in this whole company, no Hispanic VPs in this whole company. Don't worry about it. There are POCs because they're Asian people. People are not ready for that conversation. And when you try to have that conversation in corporate, people get very antsy about it. I'm like, well, if we're all getting lumped in together as POC, it seems only one type of POC is getting the promotion. It's interesting. It's very interesting. Hey, type effectiveness. Listen, Disney is not a moniker for greatness. However, their characters would never, but mess. LaRonda. Honestly, I would have been on the news. I don't play about mine. Now everyone isn't like me, so I understand if they didn't flip, but it's the fire in me, I guess. That's what I always wonder, which is maybe I won't have children then, because I'm like, And this is my thing. Agree with Sherry. My thing is if you're going to be racist, be that, but stay among your white friends and fam and stay out of the world. Once you enter the world and internet, you know you will interact with everybody. If that's what you want to choose with your one life on this green earth, listen, if you want to do stupidity in the corner. Do stupidity in the corner. It's the need for everyone else to assimilate to your stupidity or know that you are doing stupidity for me. All right. Also, if you're just tuning in, we're running through the comments. WJ, my son is 8 and we live in a predominantly white area. He is very, very aware of him being Black and his friends are of other races. You better believe I'm up in that school constantly. Yeah, I love the Black mothers that are constantly in the school and the Black parents that are constantly like, well, you thought I have time. Because that's the only way. If not, the school will act like your child is out here having disciplinary problems and your child is not doing anything. It's very wild. Lift every voice and sing is like one of my favorite spirituals. That's my favorite one. It's my favorite one. All right. I also heard that Sesame Place licensed the ability to use the characters. Is that true? I'm not sure. I will look into it. I'm not sure. Yes, that's wonderful. That is wonderful. Awesome. All right. Jacqueline, when I was young, I always felt like I was invisible to those types of characters. I wouldn't be surprised if someone did a study and showed that across the board, the characters in the fuzzy costumes that where you can't see their eyes, but they can definitely see you, that there is some conscious bias there. I wouldn't be surprised. All right. So glad all of you were able to catch a live. So this is the new time, 5:30. It was started at 5:33, so I'm pretty much on time. Hello, look at that. It's an excellent video. I really like her channel. And this is the hurtfulness for me. The fact that we saw Pepper Queen, the fact that we saw the moment of disenchantment for these Black girls, seeing how the world doesn't value them was mind-boggling. It's so sad because it's so visceral and it's instant. It's just an instantaneous, like, oh, I don't get the same treatment. Like, all right. What, child? just, it was a lot. It was just like, and saying that to them, and then I had to make them look around. First of all, let's play out how the scenario went, because to this day, this shit is so funny to me. I wasn't wearing Ankara. I was wearing this like green top. I think I've worn it on here before. It's like long sleeve, but very, very patterned, very me. There is one other Black person in the room, and they do not work there. They are hired to give a speech presentation before me. They do not work there. So when I made that statement, like, y'all complaining about reverse racism, like, first of all, this is not real. Let's embrace reality. You're allegedly smart people. You're all making well into six figures, big money. Like, read a book, buy a book, please. We have an education stipend. Stop this. But I had to literally tell them, I was like, let's look around the room. There's only one Black employee in here. There are 65 people, I think, in that room. 65 people in here. And they were like, just uncomfortable. And I was like, what are you talking about? Like, you're afraid that you're losing opportunities to people that you are purposely gatekeeping, but you're not even letting them in. Like, what are you talking about? Like, it's just, corporate is a very odd place. Just corporate is a very odd place. Thank you. She's cooperating today. That's what I'm saying. And I think in why I started the video with showing the history of Sesame Street was literally designed for Black and brown children of a certain demographic. And in general, like, for them to just not admit it and call and say, like, we did this. We've made programming for 1969, math, almost 50 years about this exact thing. Yeah, we are perpetrating it. We are sorry. What? You're getting sued anyway, Sesame Place. Like, you're getting sued anyway. Like, just say what you did and apologize. Let's just start there. What is the reason? Listen, I believe it. Exactly. This is child. Just loud. This doesn't happen. I would say in corporate spaces, once you call out racism and you're just like, stop the nonsense. Like, this is what it is. People don't like that, obviously. Certain people do. Certain people are all for it. They're really fighting the good fight. They're trying. Few and far between. But the opposite happens, where people will come up to you then because they're uncomfortable. They know that somebody said reverse racism, but they are like, it wasn't me. They have to let you know that they were not doing it. They'll come to you quick. Oh, that was a great presentation, Stephanie. It was 5 minutes, like 6 minutes max. Like, I didn't get allotted a lot of time, because you give me a lot of time, what's going to happen? It was great. And, I really appreciate you getting to the root of it, because they have to let you know, like, remember this face. I'm not the one who said it. I am a good progressive person, and it wasn't me. It's always just very interesting. It was a very interesting. I completely agree, Joyce. It's so awful how the default is being scared, being scared of getting their racism called out / being ashamed. We should feel guilt and be ashamed, etc. Reflect, then grow, change. Exactly. Like, when you do something bad as a kid, the first immediate response, at least like for me, was always like shame. Like, oh crap, I did a bad thing. Depending on what you do, when you get older, you realize, like, I don't really care about the bad thing I did. I care about getting caught. Like, okay, if I did the bad thing, whatever. I was supposed to go to bed at 8. I turned the TV on. Oh, who cares? If dad caught me, damn. I did a bad thing. I didn't listen. I woke up for school and I'm tired. Now I'm making him late for work. Like, domino effect of foolishness. I didn't really care at 12 years old that I ruined this man's morning and I made him late to work. I care that I got caught and I got fussed out about it. And now the TV's unplugged in my room and, whatever. As an adult, we have to go back to, like, you need to feel shame. You need to feel shame for doing the bad thing, particularly when the bad thing causes medical harm to people. Wild. It's wild. Yes. Big up the yardies and the breadfruit. Joke of the day, which this is completely random. Now that we're just on here, we'll just chat for a minute and I'll let y'all go. I took Gabriel, so my boyfriend, and he's American. So just saying, where everyone is from, so this will make sense. He's Black American. Who else was there? Jasmine is Afro-Brazilian and American. Chelsea is American. Oh yeah, Marcus was there. Marcus was in town, also Black American. We went to this Caribbean place. I was like, oh, there's breadfruit on the menu. You guys have to try breadfruit. Breadfruit, if you're not Caribbean, is literally, and I think there's other parts of the world that they eat it too. We eat it in the Caribbean. It's literally how it sounds. It's a fruit that tastes like bread. It's great. It's my favorite thing ever. However, it's very starchy. So if you don't cook it right, then it's very, very starchy. And you have to like eat it with gravy. Like you eat it with ackee and saltfish. It's great. So I was like, oh, I should try breadfruit. None of them had breadfruit. They were not amused. They were not amused. The restaurant didn't really do it right. They fried it. They should have roasted it. But yeah, so 0, 1 down for the Yardie. I have to give them something else. They just kind of looked at me like, Stephanie, why would you eat this? It's great. I love breadfruit. It's the best thing ever. Oh, we're going to do one. We're going to do one, child. It's going to be interesting. All right. This is a good question, Lamar. Do they mean unconscious in the sense of protective adaptations, and the psychological of left hemisphere shifts? Always wondered how they were using that word. I would say in DEI, it's a very surface level. Let me turn the AC on, child. It's a very surface level usage of unconscious, as in, oh, like I couldn't have done it on purpose. They basically use, like, I've sat through a lot of DI trainings. Like when I first was like, oh, I'm interested in this. And like, I was doing it for free at the companies I worked at before I did consulting. And the way unconscious bias is usually explained in the trainings is they'll show these videos, and the videos will show like a bunch of like images. I'm gonna say when images come up, your brain basically creates creates like not the answer, but creates your thought around it before you even see the full image. So they use it like that, which seems incorrect, to be honest. As somebody who is not a psychologist and does not have, I would say, as good as a grasp on psychology as you do, clearly, I feel like the way that they're using it is very surface level and very incorrect. It's very much like, oh, because I associate curly hair with unruliness, it was my unconscious has always associated curly hair with unruliness, which is nonsense. It's mostly nonsense. Most of the bias, I would say, between people is very conscious. It's a very much conscious decision. Like, for example, people did like informal, and I think they finally did formal studies of how on the street, like how the street is racialized, the sidewalk, about how they've done studies that white people do not inherently, numerous white people. So if you're a white person, you get offended, you should see how you react on the street. I've noticed lately people have gotten better because I try it every day now, but they will not move out of the way for a black or brown person or somebody with brown skin, but they will move out of the way for a white person. And the idea in the study was that they don't see us. They're like, oh, it's a tree, which is wild because we're moving. And I'm like, I don't know how I feel about that. Because I'm like, I see y'all move out of the way for a dog. So you're going to see a dog, but you don't see me? Like, this is wild. And I noticed, so basically the study, it was like a big thing on the internet. Informally, they're like, oh, black people, don't move out of the way and see what happens. See if people start bumping into you. And the first time I did it, mad people bumped into me. I'm also 5'2". So in my mind, I was like, it's because I'm short. And then I realized I watched Gabriel do it, and Gabriel's 6'2", and he's big. And so when people are bumping into him, they would bump into him and then be kind of irritated because like he just wouldn't move, and he's like large. So the impact would then shock them into like, oh, I should have moved. Versus they didn't have that reaction with me. They're just like, oh, little black woman, like whatever. It's very interesting. Very interesting. All right, WJ. I let someone know where I work that her behavior is anti-black and racist. Her superior white told me that they are a minority because most people there. Child, I cannot stand this like grouping of like, we have BIPOC now and POC and blah, blah. We are not experiencing the same things in this country. It is a flattening of very different racialized experiences. And it's silly. It doesn't, because a lot of it is rooted in anti-blackness, but people don't want to say the word black. Interesting. All right. Oh! I love this. Thank you. I'm glad. So you just gotta say it to your face. Thank you, God. Thank you, Kyrie. Isabel Wilkerson wrote cast. Yes, I need actually now that I have time, I'll finish reading it. All right. Listen, let me say wild shit. And that's a completely agreed, Dr. Angel. When white people position themselves as the default as people, and then tell us not to focus on the qualifiers, black, etc., they really are just saying focus on me. That's what it is. It's like, your little problems, please. It's a distraction. It's a distraction to the real problems of me. Tech is the number one to do this. Listen, it's just a mess. It's a mess, man. Yes, completely agree. Yes. Affirmative action mostly benefits white women, which is ironic to see people like now going after it like it was ever helpful. Okay. Oh, for sure. Jamaicans hate, as a whole, not all of us. Obviously, I have my hair natural like this. Older Jamaicans, oh my God. Every time I FaceTime my dad like this, he's like, Stephanie, please, just, anytime it's like, if it's this size, fine. Well, it just looks crazy, but like I've just washed it and it's not that big, like it grows. It grows with the product. Stephanie, please straighten it. Jamaicans have a lot of colorism, and a lot of, I would say texturism, not in that sense, because texturism is usually like the more kinky your hair is in the States, the worse people treat you and how they act towards people with 4C hair. In Jamaica, is any type of coil, they're like, please remove yourself from this. It's hilarious. I could never. I mean, I weird on my family anyway. I was like, get over it. They're fine. They're fine. All right. I'm just making sure we go through. We had so much comments. Thank you all for tuning in. I appreciate y'all. So this will be our new time at 5:30. Oh, this is a recent update. Before I give away the whole video, let's suffice to say that me giving talks about reverse racism and actually pushing people didn't sit well. But that's fine. That's fine. Listen. Yes, that's wonderful, Elle. That's wonderful, Elizabeth. And all vendors, I'm hiring all Black and brown business owners. I have been very intentional on who I hire. That's wonderful. Awesome. All right. Listen, like it's intentional at this point. Like if you're you're committed to the racism, they're committed. Like I had an executive. I'll save that for the video. The things people asked me that job were so interesting. I'm like, who are you associating with? Like, as a rich white person, some of them are very wealthy. Like, do you know any Black people? Like, that's always like my question. Because I'm like, some of these questions are objectively like, what? Do you read? Like, do you? And they don't, child. We're a theory to them that makes good music. That's it. It's wild. It's very wild. Listen, swift. Once you give a presentation, a speech, anything about like, oh, this is racist and that is racist and we should do this, they are swift with their faux allyship. I'm like, this is not an action. Like, you did nothing. Nothing was done. Oh, all right. Yes, y'all should try. Yeah. You did eat the breadfruit, Marcus. It's fine. Next time you come visit, I'll just make like the whole thing. It's great. Listen, exactly, DD. Roasted breadfruit with saltfish. It's good. For what it's worth, it's because I was already a little bit tipsy and I didn't order. Like I ordered it and then thought that one of us had ordered like curry chicken or something, but it was brunch, so nobody did. So they just had it like just dry, which is awful. And it was fried. It wasn't how it usually is. You know, it's usually a little bit better. Listen. They don't move. I've noticed lately, at least in my neighborhood, and maybe it's because like I live in a gentrifying part of Brooklyn, so it's the same people I'm seeing all the time. Maybe they've realized like, oh shit, that neighbor with the big hair is not moving. I need to move. Listen, move or get moved. Like, enough of this. I'm not moving. I'm not moving anymore. Also, I would say as like a small Black woman who's always had to prioritize everyone's space above mine because people act like they don't see me, which is objectively wild because I'm usually like, this is not that bright of a color. I'm usually wearing obscene bright colors and patterns. I'm done. I'm tired. I'm in my 30s now. I'm not moving. No, all my life I've been moving. Listen, that's exactly what I don't care. I don't care. See? Rude. I'm 5'9" and they bump into me. They expect us to move for them. I'm over it. I'm over it. All right. Okay. This is I hate this. People do not see a lot of Black women, I've noticed, in lines. People will cut in front of me and then turn around and they'll gaslight you. Be like, were you in the line? No, ma'am. I'm just standing here for my health. Like, what are you talking about? Like, move out of the way. Yes, I did. And I saw that Dutty Boy posted a whole fake profile of her. People are awful. Kimberly from For Hearing, I think it's on her like Kimberly channel, did a really good video on that. So highly recommend. Oh, and this is that. And this is that. Completely agree. Flip the switch. Completely agree. All right. So on that note, I will let y'all go to dinner on time. So I hope you have a good night, and I will see y'all on Thursday at 5:30, but probably before then. So videos, I always say them at the end, so I remember, like, I need to do them. We're gonna do departure from DEI mixed in with the student loan update this month, and it's the severance video I outlined. So I think I actually am going to film and upload that tomorrow. So I think that will be very good. If you haven't watched Severance, watch Severance. If not, it will just be full of spoilers. It's fine. So yeah. And then, yeah, I will catch y'all later in the week. I'll catch y'all tomorrow. Fingers crossed, most likely. If not, I'll catch y'all next week. So have a good almost weekend. Oh, I'll answer this really quick. I have been following the pink sauce lady, and she has bought herself a huge lawsuit. So I couldn't figure out if we should wait until people file the lawsuit and the FDA goes after her rightfully for selling what is likely rancid ranch, or if we should wait. So we'll see. But yeah, I will catch y'all later. Bye.